And yes, we are talking about creation. I'm just going to stay down here this morning. Our scripture lesson comes from the creation story, from Genesis 1, verses 24 through 31. Then God said, "Let the earth produce every sort of animal, each producing offspring of the same kind, livestock, small animals that scurry along the ground, wild animals." And that is what happened. God made all sorts of wild animals, livestock, and small animals, each able to produce offspring of the same kind. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let us make human beings in our image, to be like us. They will reign over the fish in the sea, the birds in the sky, the livestock, and all the wild animals on the earth, and the small animals that scurry along the ground." So God created human beings in his own image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female he created them. Then God blessed them and said, "Be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and govern it. Reign over the fish in the sea, the birds in the sky, and all the animals that scurry along the ground." Then God said, "Look, I have given you every seed-bearing plant throughout the earth, and all the fruit trees for your food. And I have given every green plant as food for all the wild animals, the birds in the sky, and the small animals that scurry along the ground, everything that has life." And that is what happened. Then God looked over all he had made, and he saw that it was very good. And the evening passed, and morning came, marking the sixth day. The word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
Now, in some Bible versions or translations, it says that God gave human beings dominion over the earth. But what does dominion mean? What does it mean to have dominion over the earth? In the translation that I read, which is the New Living Translation, it says that God said, "Fill the earth and govern it. Reign over the fish, birds, and other animals. I have given you all the plants and the trees." God put us here. He put human beings here on earth to rule over it and to govern it. But we have to exercise care and compassion as we rule over it, as we govern the earth and everything that is in it. We talk sometimes about being good stewards of God's gift. And usually when we say stewardship, we're talking about money. But it isn't always about money. Stewarding something is just taking care of something that doesn't belong to you. Taking care of something that's not yours. God created the earth, and it belongs to him, but he put us here to take care of it. Jesus told a parable in Matthew chapter 25. You may have heard it called the parable of the talents. In this translation, it's called the parable of the three servants. And it reads, "Again, the kingdom of heaven can be illustrated by the story of a man going on a long trip. He called together his servants and entrusted his money to them while he was gone. He gave 5 bags of silver to one, 2 bags of silver to another, and 1 bag of silver to the last, dividing it in proportion to their abilities. He then left on his trip. The servant who received 5 bags of silver began to invest the money and earned 5 more. The servant with 2 bags of silver also went to work and earned 2 more. But the servant who received the 1 bag of silver dug a hole in the ground and hid the master's money. After a long time, their master returned from his trip and called them to give an account of how they had used his money. The servant to whom he had entrusted the 5 bags of silver came forward with 5 more and said, 'Master, you gave me 5 bags of silver to invest, and I have earned 5 more.' The master was full of praise. 'Well done, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in handling this small amount, so now I will give you many more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together.' The servant who had received the 2 bags of silver came forward and said, 'Master, you gave me 2 bags of silver to invest, and I have earned 2 more.' The master said, 'Well done, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in handling this small amount, so now I will give you many more responsibilities. Let us celebrate together.' Then the servant with the 1 bag of silver came and said, 'Master, I knew you were a harsh man, harvesting crops you didn't plant and gathering crops you didn't cultivate. I was afraid I would lose your money, so I hid it in the earth. Look, here is your money back." But the master replied, "You wicked and lazy servant. If you knew I harvested crops I didn't plant and gathered crops I didn't cultivate, why didn't you deposit my money in the bank? At least I could have gotten some interest on it." Then he ordered, "Take the money from this servant and give it to the one with the 10 bags of silver. To those who use well what they are given, even more will be given. They will have an abundance. But from those who do nothing, even what little they have will be taken away. Now throw this useless servant into outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." Now the principle in this parable is the same as the stewardship principle that we just talked about. That God put us here to take care of his creation. If you've been an environmentalist all your life, if the Environmental Protection Agency is your hero, if DHEC, the Department of Health and Environmental Control, we've heard of those places, but if you've been an environmentalist your whole life, then sorting through some recyclables and changing out a few light bulbs is not going to seem like enough to you. On the flip side, if you've never recycled an aluminum can or plastic bottle in your life, then starting a fund to stop air pollution or starting a tree planting initiative is going to seem overwhelming to you. But in this story, the man who went on the long trip gave each of his servants responsibilities according to their abilities. I'm going to slow that down just a little bit. He gave them responsibilities in accordance with their abilities. The responsibilities that the master gave to the servants was a response to their individual abilities. The point is not how much he gave each of them, but the point is that they do something with it. The master asked the servant, "Why didn't you at least put my money in the bank so that I could have gotten some interest on it?" But the servant said, "I was afraid I would lose your money. I was afraid I would lose your money, so I hid it." He was afraid. Now I know of a gentleman who runs a company that hires a lot of salespeople. And he has a saying, I don't know if it's his saying or if he's quoting somebody else, but he likes to say that timid salesmen have skinny kids. I'll let that sink in for a second. The point of that saying is that if you let the fear and the doubt control you, then you won't accomplish much. If you let fear and doubt control you, you become like the wicked and lazy servant. The wicked and lazy servant is not the villain of this story because he was only in charge of a little bit. He's not the villain of this story because he only had the 1 bag of silver, the 1 talent. He's the villain of the story because he didn't do anything with it. The point is not how much we're given, but what we do with what we are given. Don't let fear and doubt control you. Now, going back to taking care of God's creation, taking care of the earth, I don't think any of us are afraid of sorting through some recyclables. That's not a real, fear-inducing activity. But it can produce some doubts. Am I really making a difference? Am I doing all this extra work when everybody else is just throwing their stuff right into the landfill? Does it even matter what I do? Now, those are tough questions to answer, but God gave us dominion over the earth. And because of that, we cannot just do nothing. We cannot put off taking care of what God put us in charge of because of the fear or the doubts that it won't make a difference. The point is that we have to do something. And you may have heard this before, but I'll end with this morning. Once upon a time, there was an old man who liked to go to the ocean to do his writing. And one morning while he was walking along the beach, he noticed that the beach was covered in stranded starfish. And as he was walking along, he noticed a young boy who was walking in his direction. And every now and then, the young boy would stop and bend down, and he would pick up something and look at it, and then throw it into the ocean. And as they got a little closer to one another, the old man called out and he said, "Good morning. My curiosity is killing me. I just have to ask, what are you doing?" And the young boy said, "Well, the storm stranded all of these starfish on the beach." He said, "Before the tide comes back in to take them back out into the ocean, the sun is going to come up and it's going to cook them. They're not going to make it. They're going to die." And he said, "I'm just picking them up and throwing them back into the ocean so that they can live." And the old man kind of shook his head and said, "Well, there must be tens of thousands of starfish here on the beach." He said, "Son, I'm afraid you're not going to make that much of a difference." And the young man bent down and picked up one more, and he looked at it, and then he threw it as far as he could into the ocean. And he smiled and he said, "Well, it made a difference to that." Let us pray.